This video 6A in the SQL series, is entitled Subquery as a Data Source. I'm Dr. James Renaud from Shawnee State University, and I'll be taking you through this video presentation. In this presentation, we're going to look at how to use a query inside of another query, but using a query as a data source. So basically what we'll do is we'll execute a query, and then we'll use that in the from clause of another SSelect statement to execute a second query. So we're going to use a query inside a query. So we're going to see how to do that using it in a from or a join clause, how to put the subquery in parentheses, and using the as to alias that subquery as kind of a temporary table name. Herein is a kind of a trivial example of using a subselect within a from. And you can see, in the statement over there, you can see in the statement that we say select star from, and then we have another select, and that subselect executes first, and then any result from that subselect then happens to go through a second select. Now, why would we do that? Well, especially when we're getting into complex joins, doing subselects and selecting small sets and maybe doing unions of multiple tables together. But here's just a trivial example. Notice that that subquery is in parentheses to designate that it is a subquery. And also notice that I say as detail, so that in the outer query, the results of the inner query, even though they come from the shipment underscore detail table, are referred to as detail within the subquery or within the outer query. So we alias the inner queries as something else on the outer query, often to make things easier to use. So here is a more complex subquery. For instance, what if we wanted to get all of the shipments and the quantity of the EB871, which is an item number, on them? So there'd be a column of how many of those parts there were. You think you might be able to do that with a join of joining the shipment detail with the and we'll see in an example, and we'll see the results that I don't think you're going to be able to get that using just a normal join. But with this technique here of using a subquery, a query within a query, we'll be able to do it. Take a look at what this does. So we're going to say get the shipment ID, the shipment date, customer ID from the shipment table. And then we're going to say get the quantity shipped from something else. And the quantity shipped, if it's null, display a 0, because there could be an item without, or a shipment without shipping that specific item. And then you see we alias the column so that it looks pretty. We then do a left join of the subselect. Now let's take a look at what the subselect does. The subselect gives us just the shipment ID and the quantity shipped of the item Deb 871. So you can see that's a subset of the shipment quantity ship table, of the shipment detail table. I'm sorry. So it's a subset of the shipment detail table, just of that part. And we join that to the main shipment table, doing a left join so that it gives all of the shipments and just the matching subselects. We call that as detail. And then we use the join on to join the two tables together by the shipment IDs. Let's take a look at what the results of this are going to look like. So the results set is just very simply the shipment ID, the shipment date, the customer number, and the number of Deb 871s that were shipped by pulling that subselect of the 871s that were shipped, and then left joining that with the shipment ID table. As I kind of mentioned before, well, why wouldn't it work with just a simple join? So let's take a look at that simple join and see if it actually works. So we do a select, shipment ID, shipment date, customer ID, the quantity shipped, Great. From shipment, left join shipment detail. And then we say where item ID equals deb 871, but that's going to affect the entire table, not just, that's going to affect the entire select, not just, so it's not going to give us the shipments that don't have any deb 871s on them, and we'll see the result isn't what we wanted on the next slide. So you can see instead of giving us all shipments and the quantity of DEB 871 shipped, this just shows us the shipments with DEB 871 shipped. So that's not what we wanted. And to pull off that question of showing all of them, you've got to kind of do that funny select in a select or subquery. Um, Sometimes subqueries can be used to really take a really complex query and say, well, I can get this out of this table and then I can select it again to come up with the summaries or to come up with the aggregate functions that I want, and it makes it a lot easier to do also. So be sure to remember the query in a query or the subquery, especially in a from or a join, as one of those tools in your toolbox. This concludes video 8A using a subquery within a select or using a from or a join clause. This presentation was copyright or is copyright 2021 by James M. Renault, PhD. All rights are reserved. If you have any questions or issues with this presentation, please contact me at jrenault@shawnee.edu. And again, I'd like to say thank you for watching.